CityCast Pittsburgh is brought to you today by the Heinz History Center. We have been hyping up their Pittsburgh Hidden History exhibit since it opened. And if you haven't checked it out, now is your chance. It truly is such a cool opportunity to look behind the curtain and see what the curators themselves actually love the most. Teeny tiny toy collections, spooky stuff, a huge riverboat wheel, even a bunch of shivs. The whole exhibit has gotten such rave reviews that they're keeping it going way longer than they initially planned. But it's not going to last forever, so cross a river, cross a bridge, and get thyself to the Heinz History Center. And don't forget, kids 17 and under always get in for free. Plan your visit at heinzhistorycenter.org. Today's show is coming at you thanks to Fresh D Cards. You know, one of my favorite things about this town is how we make black and gold work for every occasion, and that extends to our gift giving. Fresh D Cards has the perfect something for the Pittsburgh sports fan in your life. They do player cards inset into very shiny plaques. It can be the perfect way to commemorate your all-time favorite player or a newer star. They also have 2025 team sets for both the Steelers and the Pirates, plus team packs with cards from different years. You can check them out for yourself at freshdcards.com/Pittsburgh and check out that 15% discount for new customers. Today on CityCast Pittsburgh, our sister bridges, the Clemente, the Warhol, and the Carson, are now officially historic, and there is so much happening around them. Glow-ups for the parks, getting all those abandoned boats out of the water. Now, some of that is about the NFL draft, but there are other big plans in the works too. Today, I'm with the CEO of River Life to talk about them, what's missing from our 15 miles of riverfront, what they learned from that little party barge on the Allegheny, and why bathrooms may be the key to success for us all. It's Monday, October 27th. I'm Megan Harris, and here's what Pittsburgh's talking about. I'm with Matt Galuzzo, president and CEO of River Life, and we're sitting on the actual river at the floating bar, restaurant, venue called Sure Thing, right next to the bridges. Matt, thank you so much for having us here.
It is my pleasure.
I gotta say, this space that we are in is one of the weirdest, coolest things that I feel like Pittsburgh has done with its rivers in a while. I'm sad to say that we are in its final hours.
Well, but only temporary.
Yeah.
I think all good things must come to an end.
At least in Pittsburgh when it's seasonal, right?
When it's seasonal. But to see, I think, how this programming barge has sort of inspired the region and how people have used it and sort of made it a part of their summer and early fall experience has been super invigorating. And so, yes, we are delighted for what we've experienced this year. We're a little sad that it's come to an end. There's sort of a bittersweetness to that, but super excited about what might be possible moving forward.
Yeah, I love the image. We were talking just before we turned on the microphones of this thing like floating away for the season and floating back in as summertime arrives next year. I mean, why is it important to you to have spaces like this where people want to hang out on the river?
Well, let me start with so River Life is a 26-year organization. We work to create and activate and celebrate Pittsburgh's riverfronts. Every single plan that this organization has ever produced, whether at the neighborhood level or sort of the regional scale, has talked about getting people on the water. Why? Because it's transformative. Once you are in a space that is disconnected from the shore, it is a magical thing, right? Whether you're on the Gateway Clipper or you're on Sure Thing, these are magical places and they feel different. And I think as a mark of regional pride, if we can create those moments, we can create a different kind of ownership for this space. And that's, including our entire river system. And so,
but a lot of
exciting.
us don't have boats, which makes this feel kind of special.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about some of that history because, 26 years is a while. It was before my time here in Pittsburgh, but I got to imagine back in 1999, people maybe weren't clambering to be on our riverfronts the same way? It's changed so much just in the last decade.
I think there has always been a desire to reconnect to the riverfronts. I will say
A desire, but maybe less access.
Less access. And I think there was an inflection point, let's say 1999. And just from here, you can see there was no convention center. There was no PNC Park. There was no Acrisure Stadium. Right. And so there was a moment where in 1999, the mayor of Pittsburgh at the time, Tom Murphy, convened with sort of the captains of industry. We're talking about Paul O'Neill with Alcoa, John Craig with the Post-Gazette, other sort of civic leaders, governmental leaders, and philanthropic leaders. They came together on a boat ride in August of 1999 that actually came right through here and stopped, where the late great author and historian David McCullough provided this rousing speech where he said, among other things, Pittsburgh's special, make this a place where you want to bring the people you love. And that boat ride and that group of people really served as a flashpoint for the creation of a task force, a River Life task force, which was really charged with setting a vision for the future of our riverfronts. That was the genesis for what we've been able to do over the last 26 years now.
Wait, is that why we named the 16th Street Bridge after McCullough? Like, was it where he gave the storied speech?
I think he has a different credibility, a much larger credibility, other than sort of inspiring our leaders.
A solid body of work beyond that one moment. I mean, when you take that in scope, though, like, what do you think of as maybe some of our biggest achievements to date?
Sure. I think the first, you have to talk about Point State Park. And the condition of Point State Park in 2006-07 is not what it is today.
I actually moved here the weekend that they turned the whole thing back on.
Okay.
It had been shuttered forever. They'd done all this like renovation work on it, like even just like the plumbing and the pipes had to be redone.
Oh, yeah.
But it was this weird moment. It almost felt like being here when like someone turned the lights on for the party, you know, like everyone was so happy to get the fountain back.
For that reason, because of how it sort of those types of moments engender such a civic pride and an ownership of these spaces. So we led that process in partnership with others to redo the fountain as a part of a much larger project. To see that, to be a part of that, super important for the evolution of this organization. Places like the Mon Wharf, which was historically a parking lot. I mean, from the 1930s on.
Still a parking lot, but a prettier parking lot now.
And you've got a green ribbon that really connects Smithfield Street to Point State Park. We led that project. The creation of South Shore Riverfront Park by Southside Works. People forget what that space looked like when the steel mill vacated. To lead an $11 million project that really reset the relationship to the river there, super important.
Amazing dog park. The geese love it. The geese are your biggest fans in that one.
Geese love us all over, and we're grateful for the geese, I guess. Sometimes. But so there have been these signature moments that we've created. I think, River Life really brought me in to, I think, deliver on the sort of challenge that David McCullough laid out as sort of a next chapter of this organization. And so 6 years ago, I joined the organization, and I think we're hopefully advancing the mission with some fidelity to that original charge.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, since you've been here, you've had this big master plan, as it were. You just launched a $30 million fundraising campaign to, quote unquote, complete the loop. So that would be to close the gaps and connect all these trails and things along 15 miles of Pittsburgh riverfront. Where physically would you say that our biggest gaps are right now?
Physically, okay, well, let me set the geography so that we can make sure. So
Let's do it.
That 15 miles really stretches from...
It's the triangle, right, on both sides of all three rivers?
It's like a heart-shaped loop.
Okay.
That extends from 31st Street Bridge down to the West End Bridge on the Ohio, and then up to the Hot Metal Bridge on the Monongahela, right? And
wait, so we're not talking Ohio?
We're talking all three rivers.
Okay.
But just really the confluence of the three rivers.
Okay.
Right? So we don't
Ohio
extend to
later.
McKees Rocks, but maybe someday. for now, it is really looking at that area. The key gaps, 31st Street has a significant gap in the Strip District and across the bridge. And then the biggest gap, and we're really focused on this, is the biggest physical gap is at the West End Bridge, where if you've ever tried to cross that bridge on a bicycle or walk your dog across the bridge.
That is such a challenge. I have, in fact, done that, and it felt like its own saga.
Okay, let's hear your story then. Okay.
It was a lot more physically picking up my bicycle to move it from place to place. Like there was a staircase involved. Like I thought it would be simpler, and it was one of those moments. And again, this was years ago. We've developed so much more trail since then. I remember thinking, like, we have really cool stuff. We have big pieces missing to make it easy.
Yeah. Yeah, and that is a great example. So I've walked my 55-pound Labradoodle, in my hands up that bridge.
Famously, a very compliant
regular
dog.
bikes. Yeah, Stella's awesome. But the reality is, if we're focused on world-class experience, and this is not one of them. And the West End Bridge, sits next to areas of the city that have experienced historic disinvestment. So as River Life, we really view it as our charge to make sure that we are advancing some of our projects in lockstep with some other bigger moves, economic development, infrastructure. And so we're at a lot of different tables right now to ensure that the future of the West End Bridge area is cohesive, connected, and really accrues benefit to the public in a meaningful way. So those are the physical gaps. There's also gaps in experience that we could talk about.
I want to hear. Yeah. So, let's start with the West End Bridge. What would you like to be there that we currently don't have?
Well, I think the basic is let's get an accessible pathway, a multimodal pathway across the bridge.
From both ends of the bridge.
Both ends, right?
Yeah, because there's a gorgeous trail that, in the summertime can get a little overrun with vegetation, but it's really nice over there.
Your trails. It is absolutely beautiful. And, but we need to be able to connect these neighborhoods to the riverfront with a system of ramps that will connect up to the bridge and across the bridge. We also believe that the landings on either side should have park-like conditions, right? Manchester should have a riverfront park right there. The West End community should have a riverfront park right there. And so right now, we are, as an organization, deploying about $3 million on deep engagement on either side of the bridge and designing through construction drawings those ramps that will really change the experience over there.
So when you say engagement, you mean like tapping in with neighbors, that kind of thing?
Yeah. So community process is a part of our work, and we embrace that. And so we are, there's experiential learning with kayak tours and doing sort of early action projects or boat tours. There are community meetings, to really sort of make sure that as we're advancing this work, it's really co-created with our neighbors so that there's an enhanced value to the improvements we're trying to seek.
What else? If I'm dreaming, I would love to have a meal within view of water, which is a little bit challenging here in Pittsburgh right now.
Sure Thing is our sort of experiment on that. I think
Sure Thing, if you've not been down here, you should first of all make plans for next year. But it's more of a snack spot. I wouldn't say it's certainly not fine dining.
Yeah, I think we're experimenting with our concessionaire. Brew Gentleman, BG Brewing out of Braddock, has been an exceptional partner to us in introducing food at all on our riverfronts.
I like that we're setting the bar low to start. And that's not to speak ill of this place. I had several snacks. I think I tried every punch y'all made available. Yeah. It was yummy, but it was just limited.
It is a challenge to try and do this in this space. How you keep hot food hot and cold food cold. When you have a solar powered shipping container as your only.
Oh, come on. What are these excuses?
Yeah, no. But we sort of framed this year as a year of experimentation. I think in year 2, we will see a more consistent meal offering because I think that's important. That's part of our goal, is to make sure that we are offering food and beverage on our riverfronts. They have been incredibly successful. I think together, food and beverage and having a novel experience like this has been super important for us to show that people will come to these types of places. I think we're anxious to be able to experiment with that moving forward.
And this is really cool, but you could also have a a standalone restaurant with like big pretty windows that's like near the riverfront, like on it, but maybe not in the water.
Yeah. So we are focused mostly on trails, parks, and open spaces. Do we support real estate development where they are thinking about how that becomes a front door? For sure. That's certainly part of our work.
So maybe partner, not necessarily spearhead.
Yeah.
Person.
I mean, I really, I'm really focused on sort of that experience, right? So you come down to the riverfront. How do we make sure that your expectations are met? How do we make sure that you can create memories in meaningful ways that support certainly real estate development and potential restaurateurs coming in? But I really want to focus on the sort of other pieces that complete that experience.
So I'll take that pipe dream elsewhere. What else is on your wish list?
Well, we're sitting in one of them. I think the future of the sister bridges is, so again, we are between the Roberto Clemente Bridge and the Andy Warhol Bridge. This area has experienced about $90 million in infrastructure investment, right? So the bridge piers, the bridges themselves, the lighting display on them.
They power washed. They're shinier now.
But you can see it now. Like, how do you use the bridges, the water, things like Shore Thing, the park spaces on either side?
I'm amazed there's a gateway clipper going by as you're like demonstrating these sweeping vistas.
Cue the Empress. Cue the Empress. Yes. That's the name of the boat. But how do you use these assets as the glue or the binder between the cultural district and the Warhols, Pop District, and PNC Park? Like, what do we need to do here to really make this an experience, a Sister Bridges experience? And so, right now we're investing nearly $18 million in park space improvements and interventions like Shore Thing to really just drive people here to have experiences that they could otherwise not have.
What's an improvement? Like, what is a tangible example of like what's getting better or going to get better?
So the first phase of that was restoring this dock behind us, right? So we restored the dock. So now boats can come up here, folks can fish from this dock.
I wondered, because when I walked down that earlier this summer, I thought to myself, was this here before? Because I don't remember this.
It was destroyed by an ice flow back in 2018.
Perfect.
We led the sort of resilient refurbishment of that dock, which we think is important. That's phase one. Phase two is across the bridge on Fort Duquesne Boulevard is a city park called Allegheny Riverfront Park. That park has fallen into significant disrepair, and we are rehabilitating the upper promenade there to include this beautiful New York bluestone. So it'll be a paved pathway, like real commitment to Pittsburghers deserve nice things. That's an example of it. We're super excited to be able to have that under construction and completed by April of 2026, which of course is the NFL draft. We're also going to be doing some new vegetation, both at the upper promenade and the lower level. So new trees, new plant materials to really gussy up that area. And then the last piece is, of course, Allegheny Landing, which is on the North Shore. This is a park that I'll say was amazing when it was created. It was the first riverfront sculpture park in America. It has been loved to death.
It's literally where I had my wedding photos taken, so don't speak too ill of it. Okay?
I know our offices are here. My daughter had her senior photos here. Like it happens. The perception, however, the reality is it's not accessible, right? Physically accessible, it's not. It also reads as a corporate courtyard.
It does, actually, yeah.
How does this park really embrace its status as a city park, right? So new accessibility improvements, play elements, which will be the first sort of play element on our riverfronts. We want to introduce water, right? And how we have play with water. We want to create quiet moments. We're about to invest about $8.5 million in refurbishing this park. That is going to be transformative for this entire area. And so you can imagine the improvements I just noted, coupled with the Cultural Trust doing Arts Landing, which is right over there, the Warhol doing a lot of their Pop District improvements very soon. And I'm thinking by the end of 2027, this will have an entirely different feel. And so you take experiments like Shore Thing and you start stacking them on top of other improvements. This is going to be an amazing place to be, where you can just wander around and find cool things that you could otherwise not find in Pittsburgh.
This episode is sponsored by Quantum Theater. They are in their 35th season, and you can catch their upcoming play, Enron. Yes, the company. It's described as a high-octane odyssey through the glittering free fall of American capitalism. And I gotta say, Quantum, you are actually literally selling it. I'm so on board for this. The show is written by playwright Lucy Preble. She was a writer and executive producer for HBO's Succession, so you know it's gonna be full of satire, high drama, and a nebby glimpse into the lives of the ultra-wealthy. For example, if you are a scholar of corporate infamy, you can look for true celebrity sightings. We're talking Jeff Skilling, Andy Fasto, and the Southern charmer himself, Ken Lay. To really get you into the business mindset, to get you ready for the play, Quantum Theater is taking their performance high above the skyline at Oxford Center. I love that they're doing this. It's exactly the right amount of extra. If you want to check out one of the 90s most iconic cautionary tales, check out Enron. It's open October 30th through November 23rd. You can get your tickets at quantumtheater.com/Enron. We are with you today thanks to the Greater Pittsburgh Nonprofit Partnership. It's a program of the Forbes Funds, and they have something big coming up. So this year marks the 20th year of the GPNP Summit, and it's such a great opportunity for anyone working to strengthen our region's nonprofits. Everyone is invited, whether you're a leader, an employee, a volunteer, or even just really passionate about an organization's impact. The theme this year is AI advocacy in action, and more than 600 changemakers are meeting at Nova Place to talk about how innovation and collaboration might shape the future of social good. Attendees are going to hear from national thought leaders, create community with peers from across Western Pennsylvania, and hopefully leave with ideas and tools to further their nonprofit missions. It's going to give you all the right energy to head into the new year. Register now at gpnpsummit.org and join the conversation that's shaping what's next for Pittsburgh's nonprofit community. Well, I think that's been like one of the challenges maybe when I think about coming to something like this. Like even when I was making my first plans to come down to Sure Thing, it was a weekend day and there was a Pirates game that night. Now we were many hours removed, but it took me 30 minutes to find a parking spot anywhere in the vicinity that I could reasonably walk down here. I didn't have any challenges, but like still, like I can imagine, like especially if you have a disability or something like that, it would be really difficult to get here. And I imagine you have to think about those things all the time.
Sure. I mean, I think the key part of our work is removing barriers, right? And how we do that. I mentioned the accessibility improvements. Those are going to be key, right? We want to make sure that our riverfronts are for everyone. And so if you're, the more barriers you're able to remove, the more that these spaces can be enjoyed. And so I think that's a consistent part of our values as an organization, and hopefully it shows up in our work. I think we're demanding it of ourselves. So
yeah, but I guess just also that feeling of like, where do I go to the bathroom? Where do I park? Like just like coming up with these logistical things of like, well, you get them here, but how do you make sure they have a good experience and it doesn't feel cumbersome to then be here?
Yeah. So two things that I think are, one is ancillary, but I think one is directly on this. We will not be a world-class riverfront until we have fully dealt with the issue of hospitality stations, right? How we can use the restroom with dignity, right, on our riverfronts. And I would say that, porta potties are not going to cut it if we're really committed to that vision. And so the next tranche of work for this organization under my leadership will include that we're going to have to lead on that piece of it if we're going to see it in our lifetime.
Lifetime's a big stretch, Matt.
Well, what's interesting is 6 years, just to give you a sense, 6 years ago, one of the challenges laid before me was you got to figure out care and maintenance on the riverfronts, right? Yeah. And we had never been in that space, right? How do you do care and maintenance?
You mean like literally like power washing the goose poop off?
Yep, power wash, how you do litter removal, how do you do that work in concert with all of the property owners, right? Because you've got 49 property owners and 180 parcels of real estate. It's not a park. So how do you deal with care and maintenance? We figured out some of that. We've created a permanent care and maintenance fund that supports organizations like Friends of the Riverfront and Allegheny Cleanways and Land Force and Downtown Partnerships, Clean Team to do a lot of that work. the riverfronts are better because of that fund that we've created. The next sort of rung of the ladder for us, I think, deals with those hospitality stations. So
once you figure out where everyone's going to pee, you let us know, because we want to make sure to get that word out right away.
Wow, it comes up in every conversation. I'm ready to take it on. So,
any other big challenges to completing the loop?
Yeah, I think, one of the things that we have sort of a growing understanding of as a region is the quality of our riverbanks, right? So the bank conditions vary pretty dramatically, right? We have a hard edge here on the cultural district side, but if you go up to the strip district, there's a 25-foot drop from the apartments at 26th Street down to the water. That really limits the ability to access those spaces. And so we have worked with the Army Corps of Engineers in the city of Pittsburgh on rating every single section of the riverfronts to better understand, what those conditions are and what the basic interventions would need to be for us to stabilize those areas from an environmental perspective, but also from an access perspective. I think it's going to be really interesting in the years to come to see how we embed ourselves in some of those projects. So,
what makes a good riverbank?
Is it stable, right? So does it have,
so like if I step on it, it's not going to collapse?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Is that a thing that some of our riverbanks do?
I'll share it with you. It's actually a really interesting
I want to know
so.
where the worst ones are so I don't step there.
Well, the Strip District is a good one. Hazelwood has some challenges. Chateau certainly has some issues. The North Shore, sort of near the Science Center and down toward the West End Bridge has an area that we'd love to focus on. So
interesting, because you don't think of that. Like, actually, I mean, if I had to point to something that seems pretty well developed and actually really lovely to experience, I would point to like between the Science Center and the casino, but the riverbank's not great.
Not great.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do you get around like big physical constraints like, our bridges, highways, railroads, things like that?
Embrace them as much as you can. I mean, I think...
Can you embrace a railroad?
I think...
There's literally one behind us right now.
Yeah, one of the things that I think makes Pittsburgh unique is their commitment to the grit and charm, right? That there's not a sterile approach to how we deal with this stuff, right?
I mean, it's never lost in any, if you're on our riverfront from any vantage point, you can see what we were born from.
Sure.
There are pieces of it all over our landscape if you're looking.
Well, and these are still working rivers. I mean, part of the...
That's true. Barges, many barges.
Shore Thing is, I think, a great example. So we're on a barge that has...
We're on a party barge.
It's a programming barge. It is an industrial use that we've repurposed, and we've put a little shine on it, a little sparkle on this
literal sparkle.
Right.
There's an art display here, and it's covered in art that's really stunning. But one in particular I loved from this past summer was the blue one that tinkles as you're on the barge.
So Fran Flaherty did a piece called The Pittsburgh Chandelier, which was just iconic piece of work.
It's so good.
But, that glitter and grit, I think, is really important. And I think how we celebrate the industrial heritage of this region is super important. And understand that these are still working rivers that we need to understand and embrace and move concurrent with.
Any other pieces of this that you're super excited about?
I mean, I think we've really dipped our toe into programming
stuff to do,
right? And the proliferation of programs near to the riverfront, whether it's the Downtown Partnership or the Cultural Trust.
Like
or
what?
the Wall. I mean, we just finished up the Ferris wheel on the bridge.
That's true. I have still not ridden that Ferris wheel, but I would. I feel like there's always that, like, it's becoming a personality test in Pittsburgh about whether you would ride the Ferris wheel on the bridge. Like, are you brave enough?
It's okay if you don't, but I think I think it's okay to say that Pittsburgh has things to do that I haven't done yet. Right?
Clearly it's popular, because the handful of times I've been on it when it was available, the line was enormous.
Yeah, it's great.
What about the winter? Are there things to do on riverfronts in the winter?
We're, like I said, it's a burgeoning area for us. We do think that Pittsburgh is a 4-season city. Like, we've seen that. Our friends at the Cultural Trust did an event called Thaw last year, which I thought was really cool. We've not gotten there yet from a capacity perspective, but who knows? Maybe sometime soon.
Oh, it sounds like you're doing a lot of building and a lot of maintenance, which is probably expensive and time heavy as well. I feel like you've thrown out actually a couple of different, like an $18 million project and a $6-7 million one over here. Like, where does that money come from? How are you able to sustain that?
Yeah. So River Life historically has been really successful in garnering funds from a variety of different places, whether that's public resources or philanthropic resources or corporations.
I'm really happy to hear you say that because I want people to care about the rivers so much.
I mean, these aren't controversial topics. We're talking about, right, claiming these, right? It really isn't. And I think that has resonated with me over the last 6 years is that people really deeply care. We do need to have organizations like River Life to harness those resources, be the steady hand at the helm, sort of tell the story. And I think there's a real value there. We've been really encouraged, I think, by the individual giving that we've enjoyed. People are coming down to Sure Thing and seeing that, oh yeah, this is what my investment in River Life can bring, which is super validating, I think, for us.
I feel like we're giving a lot to, this stretch of the Allegheny and over by Point State Park. Anything that our friends over along the Mon stretch, like maybe from the confluence down to Hazelwood, can look forward to?
Yeah, the future of Hazelwood Riverfront, I think, we were a part of the master plan for the Hazelwood Riverfront. That technically is in sort of a River Life expansion zone.
I've seen so many master plans for that area, and I know it's long gone, but God, the rotating restaurant that they had talked about over there really looms large in my memory of things we'll never get.
Well, I started my career in Hazelwood. I did a field placement at the Hazelwood Initiative in 2003. That was my first introduction to riverfront neighborhoods. And so it has a special place in my heart for that, right? That community feels very deeply and strongly about their riverfronts. And so but a
lot of it's a rail yard right now too, which
sure.
I mean, it's also just like a challenge in terms of how you can make it more accessible to people who want to experience it, might want to live near it. Like you have to work around that industry too.
But it's also a big enough canvas that you can do some really interesting things there. So
like?
Well, I mean, I think there are, connecting Hazelwood Avenue back down to the riverfronts and really creating an access point that sits in the center of the neighborhood. Like that's part of the riverfront plan.
So just step one is literally just getting folks to be able to be on it.
And I say that with you talked about rail. Like it's not simple to get.
I know. Right? It's a wildly complicated thing. Right. Actually, I think that might be harder than doing stuff like this, like Sure Thing.
Asked me 3 months ago, I would have told you this is the hardest thing I've ever done, but I've been a part of. Our team did amazing work on this. But yeah, I mean, each project has its own unique challenges. That one is particularly challenging because of the railroad conflict there.
Yeah. I mean, are there other cities that we should be emulating or like you look to for inspiration, like cool stuff?
That's a really good question. I think especially right now, Pittsburgh should be spending a lot more time looking at other cities, especially as it relates to riverfront development. There have been cities like Cincinnati that I think have eclipsed Pittsburgh in terms of some of the improvements that they have made. What the Detroit Riverfront Conservancy has done, especially as it relates to some of the amenities we talked about, like restrooms and that type of investment, there's a ton to learn from what they've been able to do. But I'm all for traveling. Let's go to Seattle. Let's go to Utrecht. There are plenty of places that should inspire us.
I bet you're fun to travel with. Like you're probably like always going down to the riverfront no matter the season.
Yeah, pretty much.
Cool. Matt, we really appreciate your work. I'm excited to see what you do in 2026.
Thank you so much for the time.
That is all for today here on CityCast Pittsburgh. You can support us by becoming a CityCast Pittsburgh neighbor. It really does help us do this work that we do. Everything's going to stay free, but employing us is not. It's not free. So we really would appreciate y'all jumping in, becoming a neighbor, and joining us at an upcoming member event. We've been talking a lot about those because they really are a blast, and we love to meet the folks who help us do this work every day. You can find all the details at membership.citycast.fm. We will be back tomorrow with more news from around the city. We'll talk to you soon.
Do you have a favorite season for Pittsburgh Rivers?
I actually like the winter.
Okay.
The winter is...
Even though that one seems like maybe the most challenging to program around.
I mean, I think it's really important to be wintering. The last 3 years, 2 out of the last 3, it's frozen over. To see the rivers that way, I think is a really, it just reminds you you're part of a cycle, and that feels important. So yeah, certainly the Ferris wheel in fall is cool, right? Picklesburg, those are cool. Chalk Fest in the spring, right? Like those are really important, but I think there's a value in seeing the quiet as well. So
you like the rest season?
Yeah.